Yo ho, me hearties, yo ho! 'Tis a wonderful life for me as a pirated be. Oh yes, another game is cracked, and today it's Red Dead Redemption 2, rounding out the week of the greatest week in game piracy that we've ever seen, with DENUVO DRM falling to the wayside, and now Rockstar's own ridiculous DRM finally dying. We can all say R.I.P. DENUVO DRM. But first, today's video is brought to you by MMORC.com, where you can save money on games for all of your favorite platforms, as well as software like Windows 10 Pro, which you can get for just $15, as well as Office 2019 Pro and Office 365. And if you act right now, you can get an additional 27% off with my code JOK27 at checkout, and that'll knock the price down on Windows 10 Pro from $15.29 all the way down to $11.16. And of course, they accept a wide variety of payment from PayPal to credit cards to Bitcoin. So be sure to act now and hit up the links down in the description below. So yes, if you are a game pirater, you filthy slag, it has been a wonderful week for you, as DENUVO DRM has been quickly falling to the wayside, and now the week has been rounded off with a game that spent about a year uncracked, and of course I am talking about none other than Red Dead Redemption 2, which in and of itself is not actually using DENUVO DRM, so this one really took me by surprise. But it does seem that the cracking groups are really working hard right now throughout Cracktober to get as many games uncracked as humanly possible. And yes, I am not wearing a shirt, and that's okay, because we're not breaking any laws here. Cracking games, that's not against the law, because as we all know, there ain't no laws when you're sipping on claws. So yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 was cracked today. This one actually did really, as I said at the start there, it really caught me by surprise. All these DENUVO games have been falling to the wayside over the last week, and I've been following the story basically via crackwatch.com, which is a kind of just really a depository of games, crack statuses, whether they're cracked or uncracked. Things started to kick off about a week ago with games like Mafia Definitive Edition, Mortal Kombat 11, which I covered in a video, Death Stranding, and then since then we've got also Marvel's Avengers, which was cracked, which is a mostly online game, but it does have a single-player aspect of it, so that has been cracked, and you can now access the single-player portion of that game. Then after that, Crysis Remastered was also cracked, and all of these games were using the latest form of DENUVO DRM. And then today, Red Dead Redemption 2, just shy of a year after releasing on the PC, 351 days later, in fact, it was released on November 5th, 2019, cracked on October 22nd, 2020. So 351 days after its release, it was cracked by what seems to be an unknown scene group, and this was actually not using DENUVO DRM, as I said. This was using Rockstar's own DRM protection, although there was a moderator on the Crackwatch threads here which said that Red Dead Redemption 2 was cracked by Empress and Mr. Goldberg. Now, not really familiar with these scene groups, although I think I might have heard of Empress before, but I've never heard of Mr. Goldberg. But if it's the same Goldberg that I know, I would say, who's next? So yeah, if you are largely against DENUVO DRM and DRM in general in games, which I personally am, I am big time against DRMs being implemented into games, even though I, 100% believe in publishers and, developers' rights to protect their IPs and their licenses from people cracking their games. I just disagree with some of the ways that they go about it. Things that, like the always online sort of stuff, these large executable files, and always needing to sort of like dial home to check the license's validity. I would love to be able to see other forms of, sort of DRM in order to be able to protect their licenses. But more often than not, what this ends up doing is actually having a larger impact on people that are legitimately purchasing these copies of the games. So in and of that part of it, that is really what I'm more or less against. And really, honestly, what we've seen in the past is that this actually doesn't really deter piracy all that much, although maybe in some of these games, some of these instances where a game maybe takes 30, 60, 90 days to get cracked, maybe there's a few people out there that went out and maybe got impatient and decided to buy the game. But, really, if these developers and publishers actually produced high-quality, good titles, most people would probably buy them anyway. Look no further than something like The Witcher 3, which was available on GOG from day one without any DRM whatsoever, and that game has sold millions and millions of copies, hugely successful, and they didn't need any sort of DRM to sort of tuck it away from people. And the people that were going to pirate it were always going to pirate it anyway, and it didn't really stop anything because it would have been cracked eventually at some point anyway. This latest form of DENUVO DRM definitely was strong for quite a while, but it seems to now have been completely toppled, taken away, and if that is the same form of DRM that was going to be in future release titles like Watch Dogs Legion, which is coming out at the end of the month, and any of the big AAA titles coming out in November, it would seem those titles are now very likely going to be cracked very, very quickly, as these scene groups like CPY or Empress and Mr. Goldberg are very likely going to be waiting in the wings, as their tools that they have set with cracking stuff like Mafia Definitive Edition and Avengers it's basically going to work right away. Once they pretty much figure out a way to crack a certain version of DENUVO, it will work in pretty much every single title that's using that exact same version. And really the best thing to come out of this, honestly, has been the memes over on crackwatch.com, which I highly recommend you go ahead and peruse at your own leisure. And if you've been on there at all, then a lot of these memes and stuff are very specific to kind of Crackwatch, and it's a pleasure to really look at them sometimes. Stuff like this, Crackwatch before, Crackwatch now, referring to the colors of, when something is uncracked, it's red, and when it gets cracked, it's green, and now all that they're seeing is green. People waiting for Red Dead Redemption 2 to get cracked, Michael Jordan going into straight up sad face, stuff like this with the Ubisoft, shaking nervously because they know Watch Dogs 2 is about to come out, and they know DENUVO has been completely cracked. So there's tons of memes here that I honestly love looking. It's really my favorite part of Crackwatch, is just sifting through the piracy memes. Stuff like this. I bet he's thinking about other women, and really all he's doing is laying there and thinking about the fact that Red Dead Redemption 2 got cracked. So yeah, that kind of stuff really does wet my whistle. And I don't really have anything else to share with you guys today. If you ever want to stay up to date with this kind of stuff, crackwatch.com usually will keep you up to date on whether or not games have been cracked or not, if that's something that you're into. I pretty much buy 99.9% of my games, but there's still a special place in my heart for the cracking community, because there was a time in my life where I could not afford to buy all the latest games that came out, and I had to resort to cracking games using private trackers, news groups, all the things of the like. So I have a special place in my heart for that community, and I respect it, and I don't look down upon them in any way, and I really hope most of you out there don't either. Although I know this is a highly controversial topic. Really, if you're against it, I don't care. You can go fuck yourself, whatever. It's funny to me, and I enjoy it, and I don't have a shirt. So that's all. Ta-da!